Dr. B. Learning Your Music, Module 7. This is Go Down Moses by H.T. Burley.
Okay, so you're about to learn your very first song, and I want to give you some ideas about that. And after this discussion, you'll find a group discussion to listen to that will also help you. So you want to listen to your song as much as possible, and I have given you some links to listen to this first song. Um, Also, you want to know what your learning style is. We're all very different in the way that we learn, and if you can know your learning style, that's half the battle when you're studying and trying to prepare yourself in some way. And I've given you a quiz. It's not graded. It's not my quiz, but it's really wise to go online, take that quiz. It's probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 minutes worth of a quiz where you just answer questions, much like some of those quizzes you see on Facebook. And it will tell you at the end what your learning style is and ways that you can learn using some exercises or some suggestions from those learning styles. So you want to incorporate that learning style. Once you know what it is, you want to incorporate that learning style. Also, I should note that most people have more than one learning style. Like you might be a little bit of an oral or listening learner as opposed to visual. You may be that plus kinesthetic or muscle memory kind of a learning style. So sometimes you have a little bit of two things in you, or sometimes you have a little bit of all. So you want to make those learning experiences as enriched as possible so that it meets your own learning style. You have to find a way to make it work for you. So if you're auditory, you should listen a lot to your music. If you're tactile, then you may learn by tapping, conducting yourself, doing something that involves movement may really help you. Dancing to your songs, that helps a lot of people. If you're visual, you may want to listen and look at your music at the same time. You may want to write out your music. Those kinds of things should really help. So your first song is called I Would Not Die in Summer, and it's an old Robert Frost song. And I've used older songs for this class so that you don't have to buy music, and also so that we have public domain usage. So if we put it out there on video, we don't have to pay any kind of royalties for that. So trying to make it as easy on you as possible and not spend a lot of money on music since it's something you're exploring. And so you may find the songs to be a little old-fashioned, but hey, put it in your own style and in your own way, and that'll make it a lot more interesting for me and you both. So when you first learn something, you may want to recite the lyrics as if it were a poem. You want to find some way to connect to it emotionally. How can you make the song fit your own life or your own narrative? That helps a lot. Like I said, writing things down. Using flashcards are great, getting someone to help you. Sleep on it. Listen to it right before you go to bed and then go to sleep. You retain that pretty well. So you have to spend time doing these things, and it's all part of your practice. And practicing, remember, is something that you have to do a little bit every day to get through this course. So you want to spend some time warming up, doing some vocal exercises, but also practicing your music. And how do you do that? Well, all artists practice doing things in their craft, right? And for now, while you're taking this class, you have to see yourself as an artist. Practice your craft. So you want to find a good place to practice. That might not be at home. If home is an apartment and you don't have, very solid walls, you can hear people talking next door that may not want to hear you sing at all hours. So you may want to choose that time wisely. But you can practice in your living room, or you can come up to the University of Toledo's practice rooms or university in your area. A lot of times, practice rooms are available to the public. If they're not, you can go to maybe the office and ask for permission for a bit to use it. A lot of times, certain YMCAs have some practice rooms available for musicians, especially if you live in a large metropolis like Chicago or New York. You can find some practice rooms somewhere that you can practice in. Practicing in your car is not a great idea. And the reason is because you're sitting, you're not able to feel the sensations you need to, you're not able to breathe as well as you would want to breathe. And so you need to find a place that you can stand upright and do your practicing. The time of day is really up to your lifestyle. I'm not a morning person. Singing is harder in the mornings, but I'm just not a morning person. Whether I was to be a singer or not, I think even if I were an engineer, I would not be a morning person. It's not my thing. I am up till 1 or 2 in the night, every night. That's how I live, and I tend to practice later in the evening. So you may want to, there's no really great time for practice because it really is about the individual and it's up to you. You should practice about 40 minutes to 60 minutes every day if you really, really want to improve. It takes 10 to 20 minutes just to get the voice warmed up. Then you need the other time to spend looking at your music. Remember, practice is also reciting that poetry, writing the poetry down, looking at the text, listening. It's not about singing the whole 60 minutes. It's about the activity and the intention of learning the music that you spend engaged in that and focused in that for a good 60 minutes. You may want some items that you practice with. Maybe you want to sit at a piano or a keyboard. You may want to have a voice recorder or an app on your phone so that you can record yourself and then go back and listen. And remember, don't be too critical on yourself, but do listen to it critically. Like what's not right about this? What is different? What am I learning about that's different here? Am I using a good source of vibrato? Am I resonant here? Is it breathy? Because we don't often hear ourselves in the same way in a room that people hear us. That's why when you listen to a recording of yourself speak, you go, that's not me. I don't know who that is, but that's not me. But it actually is a really good indicator of how you sound, and it's because of acoustical science. You hear yourself in the room, you hear yourself in the head, it changes that a little bit, and so you may think your voice is lower, or you may think your voice is a little different. Still to this day, when I hear myself talk, I think, who is that hick? Right? Because I'm from the South. And that's not going to likely change, and I'm not interested in actually changing the way that I speak. So you may find that you think you sound one way, but you actually don't. So listening to yourself is a great tool. Fixing some things that maybe you object to when you listen, and you wouldn't have been aware of had you not listened to yourself. You might want a pitch pipe, or there's some apps on your phone that are like keyboard apps or pitch apps where you can play a pitch and then check to see if you're singing the right pitch. You might like to sing, if you'd like to sing a cappella, that's really helpful to know if you're singing in the right key. You may want a metronome. A metronome is a device that helps you keep a beat. It will click away, and you can hear the click so that you know where you're supposed to be in the song. There are also great phone apps that are free for that. And you would really benefit from having a mirror, if not a full-length mirror, which here at UT, in a lot of our practice rooms, if they're geared towards voice, there are full-length mirrors in there so that you can see your body, you can see if you're breathing correctly, you can see your posture, you can see your stance, and so you have an idea, what you're doing by looking in the mirror. But if you don't have that, even a handheld mirror is really great because you can see the shape of the mouth, you can see where maybe jaw might be jutting out, and we don't want that, or you might see where you're raising your head here, and you don't want to do that. Remember, we want to be here. So having a handheld mirror is really great. Also a pencil and some paper, of course, but marking up your music, marking phrases, things like that are really going to be helpful. I use colored pencils so that I know kind of what each color means. If I need a green one to be breath, or if I need a red one to be a rhythm that I'm struggling with. Sometimes I use colored pencils for things, and that helps the brain decipher what it is I'm trying to accomplish. Because remember, when the brain sees a lot of different things, it begins to slow down that process and tries to make things a little more difficult sometimes when you're trying to learn music. So I have attached to the PowerPoint module your song, I Would Not Die in Summertime. And so you should be able to see that, and you should be able to find it on YouTube. I think I may even have a link to it there that will play just the melody for you so that you can hear it and hear what it sounds like. There's no singer on it, but it does, it is beneficial for you to hear it and see it as it goes by. So good luck learning your first piece. If you need any help, please feel free to give me an email. I will help you. Thanks. Okay, so now that you have read and looked at some of the links for how to learn music, and you've looked over your very first piece, I thought it would be great to hear some discussion about how other people learn music, since everyone is a little bit different, and as you've learned from your additional reading, that we all have very different learning styles. I, for one, am super visual and also super hands-on, so just listening to something doesn't help me as much as, of course, listening, but also watching and reading as I listen. So watching that music go by, looking at my score while I'm listening is enormously helpful for me in my learning style. Also, sitting down at a piano and playing my part is super helpful for me because, again, it's about being hands-on. If I just rely on listening alone, or just reading something alone, it's not as rich of a learning experience for me, and it doesn't happen as quickly maybe as I would like it to. So I have to really enrich my experiences when I try to learn something. How about you all? Do you know your learning styles?
Yeah, for me, when I first get a piece of music, I sit and I listen to it because it is so beneficial to hear people's interpretations of that piece because they could be very similar, they could be very different. And then also, I go through my score and I just mark like crazy. Like I subdivide, hey, this is where, I need to breathe, and hey, this is, the quarter note goes here, and this accent goes here, and knowing that I have a visual kind of like guide on how to sing that piece before I go to a practice room and then start learning it. And then I sit with a piano and a metronome, and those two are my best friends, and I'll just sit there until I learn it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How long does it take you about?
Anywhere, I'd say for me to really learn a piece, I would say maybe about 3 to 4 days, just to really be able to feel confident about knowing that piece and knowing it really well before I go take it to a voice lesson or I go take it to somebody to listen to see how they feel about it.
Yeah, that's good. Do you have to memorize things in your choir experiences?
Yes.
And how do you memorize?
When I memorize, I just listen to it as much as possible and then sing it as much as possible. I'm not very good at reading music at this point, so reading it most of the time doesn't exactly help me. So when I listen to it, I read the music to help me try learning how to read music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good advice. I think probably most of our people who are taking this class will be people who are pretty new to reading music, and that can be really intimidating to see all those lines. And often people think that reading music means that when you are singing, you're also saying or thinking your letter names on that staff, but we don't really do that, do we? We know them, we can name them, right? Just like when I look at the word, I look at a sentence, and perhaps the sentence has the word perseverate in it, let's say, a really big word. My mind doesn't go, oh, P-E-R, right? I can, in fact, I've taken those tests where you can have some of the letters missing and still know what that is, because you learn things like how your brain will kind of fill in the gaps for you. You learn where there are patterns. You learn those kinds of things. And reading music is the same way. When you see music going a certain way, and you can see kind of like looking at a heartbeat on a monitor, right? You see that topography, if you will. You can see the architectural design of that line, those lines, and you learn when you do it, oh, that's a scale, and that's just those are just steps. You're not thinking, oh, that's F, G, A, B flat, C, right? We can name them, just like I can name the letters of the alphabet, but mentally I'm not naming those letters as I read, right? So when people get intimidated because they think they need to read those letters
as they sing. Oh, this is an A, so I'm going to sing, ah. Well, that's somebody who has perfect pitch. No one on this stage has perfect pitch. I have really good relative pitch because I've done this for so long. And when you've done something for a long time, you get better at it, right? So I also know how pitch feels in my throat. So unless I'm having a bad day, right, I can pretty much guess what pitch something is based on the sensation that I have. But I'm not, I am reading that music, yes, but mostly because I've learned the language and the terminology, and I've learned how to look for patterns and those kinds of things. And in that way, that comes with a lot of experience, right? Ways that you tell your students, perhaps?
Yeah, there are a couple of different things that I suggest. One is to separate the notes from the words and to write out the words much like a poem, and memorize the words totally separate from the notes. And then put them together. Sometimes that works a lot better. I'm a super visual person, and I had a teacher suggest this once, and I actually did it, and it actually helped. If you think about the story of whatever you're singing, whether it's a song, she had me draw like little stick figures or little pictures to give me visual cues.
As to what's happening in
Yeah, sometimes that helps. But I'm kind of an anomaly. I use a lot of different things depending on the piece. I use note cards.
I use note cards, and I find I always keep 3x5 cards, and I give them to my students a lot. And when they come to the studio, I'll be like, "Here, this is your gift. I'm giving you 15 note cards. Go write your music down." And I use sort of a shorthand in that if it repeats, like if a phrase repeats, I put a repeat sign. And, if it's going to repeat 2 times, I put a repeat sign, and I put 2 times. I've done entire operas in this one, where I have collections in my office. Here's the Traviata collection. Here's the Rigoletto collection. Here's the Magic Flute collection. Right, they're already done. I did them years ago, and I go back and look at them. Sometimes when I'm learning, say, a piece that's in a foreign language and it's kind of long and it doesn't have a lot of repetition, I'll try to memorize that text first, get that German or French in my mouth, and then I'll have somebody hold them, and I'll say, for every word that I know, scratch it out. So until I keep working on that until that card is completely blank. It's like redaction. The government's gone through and redacted. Right? Like, redaction. So, and then when I'm having a mental block, which we all get those occasionally about something, right? It always seems to happen to me more in French than any other language. But when you have that mental block, you can see, oh, that word. I've got 5 words left there that are not redacted. One's a bec, one's whatever, and I can then remember those 5 words. And what order sometimes if they go in order. Oh, it's a bec, moi, aussi, those kinds of things. I can do kind of tricks like that to trick the brain to cooperate because learning music is hard. So, and unlike most instruments, we have to memorize ours, right? Everybody else in the pit, they all have music in front of them, but not the singers. And they're singing, dancing, and acting. So it's much more difficult, I think, for us. I like the idea of separating and saying it. Also, sometimes when you write things down on a say, a 3x5 card, you can also then intellectualize, oh, this repeats. Oh, these rhyme. When you're busy trying to memorize something, sometimes that goes over your head because you're so inundated with all the multitasking you need to do. And I say this a lot too. When you have a page of music and you've got to know rhythm, words, pitches, rests, which is part of the rhythm, but still, and you have all of those things, where to breathe, what word's important in the sentence, right? Like it's not the, right? when you have those kinds of things happening on a page, the brain literally goes, okay, this is complicated. And I'm going to slow down and take my time with this, because this could be math. And I'm not good at that. So I'm going to slow down and really try to figure out what's happening here. But if I separate those elements, then the task becomes so much easier, right? Once I have those words in me and they're basically memorized, I don't have to look at them on the page anymore. Now all I have to do is get my brain and my vision, all my visuals, to go only to the notes and rhythms. Or conversely, if I have those notes and rhythms memorized, and I can just sing ta 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 ta, whatever, without looking at the music, because I have that memorized, that part memorized, then all I have to do is look at the words. Memorizing one or the other first makes the job so much more easy. You think memorizing the words first is the easiest?
It depends on what I'm doing personally. I think for a younger singer or someone who's not used to it, I think it helps them a lot to separate them and put them together. It just depends. For the note cards, I mean, that's interesting, the idea of redacting, I'm going to use that. But also for note cards, one thing I do is I put a cue word on the front and then the rest of it on the back. So I learn those cue words down each line, and then when I see them, I follow with the line rather than just looking at the whole line.
Because sometimes you can't think of the next line because you can't remember the first word.
Right.
Somebody gives you the first word and you're like, oh yeah, it's this, right? And luckily for our purposes for this class, you're only singing in English. I'm not making you sing in French or German or Spanish or Russian or Czechoslovakian. So as with most music majors, we sing in a lot of different languages. So yay English, yay your native tongue, although maybe you might be a student who's not, your first language is not English, and maybe this is harder for you. And you should email me if that's the case, and I can help you with some of those tricks for learning English. Anything else you can think of when it comes to learning music? I think separating the elements at first is very much an important part. What happens when you learn something incorrectly?
It sticks with you forever.
Wow.
It's almost impossible to go back and fix.
It is. What did they say? Like for every mistake you learn, you have to undo it by doing it correctly. How many times? It's like some ungodly amount. Like 45 times or something like that, So it's not likely that you're going to learn the words incorrectly when they're words. But notes and rhythms, that can be something that you can easily learn incorrectly. So yes, tapping that toe, right? Knowing where the beat is, using a metronome, and listening will be the things that will help you narrow your chances of learning something incorrectly in terms of a note or a rhythm. So, okay, if you have any questions or if you're struggling, please contact me. Just send us an email. Thank you.